And when I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
And if we're talking tight ends and we're going into round 2, maybe round 3, give me Ian Thomas, please. Let's just do the damn thing.
Just based on giving his overall ability. Again, I like his arm. I think he can make every throw.
The pick at number 12 is in.
We are back, cover 1, the Draft Podcast. I'm Russell Brown. With me, as always, CP Christian Page, my man CP. How we doing?
We're doing good. Good to be talking about all the results of the NFL draft. Kind of bittersweet, though, to be honest.
Yeah, it really is. We're through everything. It's over. We have not given a day 2 recap yet, but we did a day 1 recap, which you can find on one of the previous episodes where we talk about the first night of the draft and some expectations for the second night of the draft. But today we're going to talk really rounds 2 through 7. We're going to give a favorite pick per round and really put a bow on it with our favorite team, our favorite draft for a team. So I'm really excited to talk about it. I mean, I think we just jump right into round 2. And what was your favorite pick through the second round?
It's funny. I'm going to go to the very last pick of the second round with the Carolina Panthers at 64, taking Jeremy Chinn, the safety out of Southern Illinois. It's no secret that Carolina had to address pretty much the defense across the board in this draft, and they definitely did that. Derek Brown, Yetur Gross-Matos was one of their value picks early in the second round, but Jeremy Chinn, kind of that movable piece in the secondary. I listened to an interview with Trey Wingo and Matt Rule on ESPN, and he was talking about he just loved the value that he brought as far as versatility goes, intelligence goes. You can put him on, really any alignment or match him up against any receiver, tight end, or either put him in the box and play downhill if you wanted to. So Chinn brings just a lot of versatility, and I would think a lot of reliability in a secondary that definitely needs it. So Chinn, I think they get a lot of value. I was kind of surprised he wasn't a top 50 pick based on all the buzz that we had coming into this weekend. But Jeremy Chinn gives a lot of comfort to that Carolina secondary that definitely needs it going forward at this point.
I was a little surprised that he was still there. I mean, I'll be honest. I thought he was going to be one of the first safeties off the board, and we kind of talked about it on a previous episode, Kyle Duggar or Jeremy Chinn, who goes first, and we both said Kyle Duggar. I believe I know I did. I can't remember it. I think you did as well. And he went 37th to the Patriots, which I really liked. That was a Patriots pick through and through. But yeah, the second round was littered with some very interesting picks. A lot of picks that I liked. Antoine Winfield Jr. going to the Bucs. I love that. Marlon Davidson going to the Falcons. We always talked about what's a natural fit for him. I think that's a great fit for him. So I think if he plugs inside as a 3 technique, as a 4-eye technique, I think he's going to be utilized pretty well there. One of our guys, Jalen Johnson, of course, he has to go to the Bears, so I have to root against him now. But I think that's a great fit. But the one that I really like the most, and also props to Van Jefferson going in the second round to prove so many people wrong. But Jonathan Taylor going to the Colts to me is just an absolute home run. 41st overall pick, and him running behind this offensive line now, I mean, shame on the league for letting that happen. I mean, seriously, he was the best running back in this class, and I know everybody kind of had their different flavor, but so many people said, oh, he won't be able to replicate what he did at Wisconsin because Wisconsin's an NFL offensive line. Well, he just went to maybe one of the teams with the best offensive lines in football. He gets to run behind Quentin Nelson, who's equivalent to the entire Wisconsin offensive line. Taylor is going to be an absolute stud. I know ball security is a concern, but I think him at 41 is just a steal. He was my 21st ranked player, my top ranked running back. I love this fit. I think he's going to be, I mean, he should easily be a candidate for Rookie of the Year. I'm going to be honest. He should be, if we get football, he should be that guy that just comes in and runs for 1,200, 1,400 yards, I think, right away. And, that's nothing against Marlon Mack, but he should be the number one back. Marlon Mack should be a compliment to him at this point, in my personal opinion. And he hasn't even touched a football for the Colts yet. But that was easily my favorite pick. But there was a lot. Round 2 was a great round, and it was weird. This was a draft that made so much sense for so many different teams. I mean, T. Higgins going to the Bengals. We talked about that before the show. I love that fit, something I wrote about. But I didn't really think it was going to happen. I thought T. Higgins was going to fall into the 40s, and he ends up being the first receiver in the second round. I love the fit with Joe Burrow. I think he's a big weapon for a quarterback. So there were so many that just – I love this second round. Do you have anybody else you wanted to add, or do you want to move forward to round 3?
Yeah, just a couple, and I'll just name a few. I really like the value pick with Christian Fulton and the Tennessee Titans. We were scratching our heads why he lasted so long.
I don't get that.
He was the number 2 corner on both of our boards, and I get that there were some background issues in his early career at LSU where, in short, he tampered with a drug test, but he faced the suspension. Then he got reinstated by the NCAA, by the university, and you thought that was over. So I don't think that was the big black mark on his scouting report. So it makes me wonder, and I get there were some inconsistencies on film, but I didn't think there were enough there to drop him maybe out of the first round. I can see, but not drop him out of like that top 40, top 45 range. But he ends up going 61 overall to the Titans. But still, like you said, those first 2 rounds, I mean, there are a couple picks that we had to scratch our head and really figure out what was going on. But those first 64 picks made a lot of sense, and they're going to bring a lot of immediate success to their team.
For sure. And we get into round 3 now. And again, we're going to go kind of round by round with a favorite pick for each round. I'll actually have an article about this. I'm going kind of off the grain of what I'm writing about. But round 3, some really good offensive linemen go in this round. I mean, Lloyd Cushenberry to the Broncos, that's a home run. Damian Lewis going to the Seahawks, that's a Seahawks pick through and through. He's going to be a stud there, a 7 to 8 year guy that's going to be a plug-and-play right guard if they need him to be. But you even look at, Jonah Jackson going to the Lions, Matt Hennessy, your guy from Temple, going to the Falcons. The Raiders, I thought with back-to-back picks, they could have looked at an offensive lineman, and they went Lynn Bowden and Brian Edwards, which I like. Bowden not as much, but Edwards for sure. I think that's a great pick. And then, we saw some defensive tackles as well. We saw Devon Hamilton, who I was a big fan of. He goes 73 to the Jags. Also, we had Josh Jones going to Houston. So, I mean, some very good picks. But the pick that obviously I'm going to talk about is 74th overall, New Orleans Saints going Zach Bond, who I don't know why he fell, and I thought for sure at 75, if he was there, maybe the Lions would have taken him. Obviously, he goes to the pick before, but Zach Bond was my 17th ranked player, my second edge rusher, and I know he's versatile enough that you could maybe even play him at linebacker. So I think him being there, that's a home run for the Saints, who had a need for a linebacker, and many thought in the first round they would take a Kenneth Murray, who went the pick before them, or a Patrick Queen, who went a few spots later to the Ravens. But, I mean, they were very rumored to be interested in one of those linebackers. They wait till the third round, they move up here, and they get Zach Bond. I love their draft, just what they were able to do. They got our top-ranked interior offensive lineman, one of our top-ranked edge rushers or linebackers. So I thought this was a great fit. I think he's going to be effective. I think he's going to be a plug-and-play guy that's going to bring you production from day one. So I love the Saints pick in round 3.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised that he lasted that long too. I was thinking that, New England caught wave of him maybe slipping a little bit, and that's why they traded out of the first round to maybe go grab him with that 37th overall pick. But instead, like we talked about, they get Kyle Duggar out of Lenoir Ryan, which is still a good situation for him. But yeah, definitely very confusing that Bond slipped that far into the third round at pick 74. I'm going to go a couple picks before that selection at 72. You touched on him just a second ago, but Josh Jones, the offensive tackle out of Houston. Arizona needed help up front, and I think they have a starter day one, in my opinion. I know DJ Humphries is locked down for the next 3 to 4 years on that left side, but Marcus Gilbert is only signed a 1-year deal, just worth over a little bit of $1 million. So the commitment's not necessarily there. So I think Josh Jones, with a decent investment in round 3, could be a plug-and-play guy. I know he started 45 games on the left side at Houston Houston, so there will be a little bit of an adjustment there. But if you're just talking about immediate impact guys, Josh Jones definitely meets that bill and is something that will help solidify the Arizona offensive line. They still need a few more bodies up front, but I think they tackled a lot of needs in this draft and really stayed true to their board as far as value goes. So once we get to, the latter part of this show, we'll talk about the entirety of this Arizona class. But I really liked it, and Josh Jones is a big part of the reason why.
I was really surprised he fell. I mean, it seemed like he was a lock to maybe go late in the first round or certainly somewhere on day 2, almost like a Cody Ford when he went to the Bills, who, maybe the combine took him out of the first round, but certainly was still worth of being a top 50 pick, top 55. And that wasn't the case with Josh Jones, but I think that's a great fit for him. I think him and DJ Humphries brings, I think, a little bit more of an athletic length perspective. If you have athletic ability and length, I think that's great to have for your bookend tackle. So I think either one could play the right side, and I certainly think either one could play the left side. So I really like that fit for the Cardinals. And also props to Cliff Kingsbury for just putting everybody to shame with his crib on Twitter. I mean, that house, holy crap, man.
I mean, that is like the
what a
epitome,
flex.
Yeah, that is just the epitome of living life to the fullest.
Yeah, it really is. But let's go into round 4. This is certainly it starts to get a little shaky, I think, compared to the first 3 rounds. You start seeing some teams, I don't know, pulling the trigger on certain positions. Maybe it's based off of need or value. The Lions, they moved up. They went after that was actually in the previous round, but they come up and they get Logan Stenberg. They moved back, actually, and they got Logan Stenberg, which was interesting. Jacob Eason going to the Colts. But what was your favorite 4th-round pick on day 3?
Yeah, I really liked. I mean, he was a draft crush of mine, but Amik Robertson to the Las Vegas Raiders. They went Damon Arnett, the cornerback out of Ohio State in round 1, which was a little bit of a surprise, but they're definitely looking forward to have those physical presence on the outside. Even though Amik Robertson's only about 5'8", 180 and some change, he definitely doesn't shy away from contact. He's really good in press coverage. He's really good at going to locate the football and coming down with it in contested situations. His ball skills may be the best in this entire draft class because he comes away at, I think, 7 interceptions last year or something. His pass breakups are probably above 30 in his career. So he definitely meets the bill of being a productive guy as far as ball skills goes. But I think he's flexible. And I know he's going to be pigeonholed as this nickelback, but I think in certain packages, he can play on the outside. He can maybe hold his own in some of those short yardage situations on 3rd down and against some of the bigger bodied receivers. But Vegas, they definitely made a statement in this draft. They stayed true to their board as well. But, just given the past couple years, Mayock and Gruden, they want hard-nosed physical players. And you look back to, maybe last year with guys like Cleveland Farrell and Jonathan Abram and even Josh Jacobs, they all had that physical embodiment. And I think guys like Arnett and, of course, Amik Robertson carry that same description. And I just really like the value here because I think Amik Robertson's one of the more underrated players in this entire draft class.
Yeah, we instantly texted each other when that pick happened. And, I mean, the Raiders, they had I thought, a little bit of a better 4th round than they did a 3rd round. And we, another pick, too, is, and I'm surprised you didn't go this route, was John Simpson, 109 out of Clemson.
Oh, yeah.
That's a plug-and-play right guard if they need him to be. I mean, this guy's going to be an 8 to 10-year pro, just solidified on the right side of the line. So, I mean, I think your new favorite team is the Las Vegas Raiders, and I mean, I'm all for it. But yeah, I was a little surprised Robertson was there that late in the draft because he had gotten a lot of buzz, and being that there's a good chance of him being a nickel, that kind of can push him up the board a little bit because there's so many different nickel packages. But he ends up going there, 139. He's going to be, I think, perfectly plugged in between Mullen and Arnett. And you're going to get some physical corners, and you've got a good nickel there. So I like that one. But the one I'm going to go with, and no, I'm not going to go with the last pick of the 4th round because I'm actually going to write about it. But pick 143. I called this the night before the draft, and Ben Bredesen out of Michigan going to the Ravens at 143. The Ravens, John Harbaugh, they go Michigan at least once per draft, and they go that way. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh, the brother of John Harbaugh, he gets probably pretty good intel on a player, and they needed a right guard. Marshall Yanda retired. You got Ben Bredesen, I think, to plug and play as a right guard. He was consistent in Mobile. I think this is a home run of a pick in the 4th round. I mean, you don't look at 4th rounders and say, oh, I'm going to get a starter. I disagree. I think, the second through the 5th round is really the meat and potatoes of the draft. And Ben Bredesen is going to be that guy that is going to be consistent with hand placement. He's going to – I love the fit. I love the Ravens had a killer draft. And, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it at the end here. But this is a plug-and-play guy, fits schematically. And he's so consistent. You have to love that pick if you're a Ravens fan. So that's rounds 2 through 4. Let's move to round 5. And obviously we'll go to 6 and 7 as well. But round 5, this is maybe when it gets a little shaky. You start seeing some certain names start flying off the board. And then there's certain guys that I would have never thought were going to be on the board. Khalid Kareem from Notre Dame. Didn't think he was going to be here. He's the first pick of the 5th round. Bryce Hall, didn't really expect him to be this late in the process. But what are what's your favorite pick into round 5?
I don't say this would be my favorite, but I'll mention him with my next selection. But Tyler Johnson, 161 to Tampa Bay. I really like this fit because he's not put into a situation where he has to be this wide receiver 1. In this case, he could be wide receiver 3 or 4. But you put him in that Bruce Arians offense. You put him with obviously Tom Brady, but you put him in a very complementary piece, if that makes sense. And I think you just, his role, where he can, test the deep parts of the field and play. I think he had 20-plus red zone touchdowns at Minnesota. So definitely put him in that role, be maybe more of that physical, big body type receiver that even though Tampa Bay does have, it just gives them a little more, relief in the red zone situation. So I really like Tyler Johnson as a fit in Tampa Bay. He maybe lasts a little longer than I expected given some of his ability, but I really like the fit, and I think he probably does too. But one pick that we're probably both going to talk about, the final selection of the 5th round, 179 overall to the Dallas Cowboys. Bradley Anae, the defensive end out of Utah, he was a top 5 edge player in my rankings. And we talked about how technical he is, how he can quickly become disengaged with his quick upper body movements and all kind of pass rushing elements that he has. He showcased that at the Senior Bowl. I mean, I don't know if he was the Senior Bowl defensive MVP, but he probably should have been because I think he came away with a couple sacks. He was constantly in the grill of the quarterback. But Bradley and I don't understand why he lasted this long. Maybe there were some injury concerns, but when you turn on the tape, he's one of the cleaner prospects as far as defensive ends go. Sure, he's not this, burly, big power guy, but still, when you have the technique, you have the ability to consistently affect the pocket. I don't know how he lasts to the 5th round, but Dallas definitely got one of the better steals, maybe the best steal in this entire draft.
Yeah, I was pounding the table billions of times when every time the Lions came up in the 4th round, in the 5th round, and they had 2 5th-round picks, they passed him by. I couldn't believe it. I really could not. I figured out of Kenny Willekes or Bradley Anae, the 2 guys that they coached at the Senior Bowl, I figured Bradley Anae would have been the player that they would have chosen just simply because of, fit. I think he's a little bit of a better fit, but also just kind of that attitude that they're looking for. I think Anae brings that. The Cowboys stole this draft from everybody. CeeDee Lamb at 17, Tyler Biadasz at the end of the 4th round, Bradley Anae at the end of the 5th round. I mean, I don't know what's up with people, but you're not drafting right. I can tell you that. Bradley Anae, it's a steal. It might be the steal of the draft. He's going to come in. He's going to get you 7 to 10 sacks every single year. He is going to be, I think this is, I don't know if I need to go on about any other player, but that's a steal. But I will talk about another pick. And, you mentioned Tyler Johnson. But I'm going to go with, and also before I go into my pick, but the Redskins, they did something I think a lot of people aren't looking at in the 4th and 5th round. They got, they traded Trent Williams. They got Keith Ismail in this pick, in this 5th round with the Trent Williams trade. And I think Ishmael is a guy that could not necessarily be a plug-and-play guy. I don't know if he's ever going to get really better or, if he can get a little stronger maybe, but he was pretty consistent for San Diego State, played in a variety of spots all along their offensive line. I think you could get a potential center there. But then also in the 4th round, they got Sadiq Charles out of LSU, who I liked quite a bit. He was in 71st or 72nd on my board, right in front of Lloyd Cushenberry. So I like both those guys quite a bit. And he fell into the 4th round. He could be a potential plug-and-play left tackle for them if needed. I like him a little bit better maybe to transition to guard, but I think the Redskins did something in the 4th and 5th round that maybe a lot of people will overlook, but they might get 2 starters right there on their offensive line. But the pick that I'm going to talk about is going to be Shane Lemieux to the Giants. I think this was a pick that for a Giants team that I think needs help along their offensive line, and obviously they went Andrew Thomas in the 1st round. They go again here. They get Shane Lemieux, who's going to play, I think, a little bit of center and a little bit of guard for them. He played 52 starts, in 52 starts at Oregon. He's consistent. Nothing's pretty about him, but to get him in the 5th round, I thought was, I don't want to say a steal, but I think it's great value. And I think maybe after the 1st year, you could see a potential starter here with the New York Giants and Shane Lemieux. So that was my guy in the 5th round that I really liked. Also, the Colts, Danny Pinter, we heard about him late in the process. You talked about him on this podcast previously when we talked the offensive line stuff. And then they also got Jacob Eason earlier. So their future for a potential guard and potential quarterback, Eason, I think, is going to turn into a starter. I really like what the Colts did in this draft. But let's go to round 6. And, what was your favorite pick here?
My favorite pick was Baltimore selecting James Prochet, the wide receiver out of SMU. High volume guy at SMU, 300 receptions, 39 total touchdowns, 22 of those in the red zone. A guy that's a perfect complementary piece of that offense. And I think he kind of can serve as that security blanket. He can win at all levels of the field, but when you just want a guy that you can just simply dump the ball off to, he can get you those yak yardage that you always like to see, and kind of I won't say a wide open offense in Baltimore, but kind of an unpredictable offense. Some days they're going to sit there and pound the ball with guys like Ben Bredesen up front, or sometimes they're going to air it out and let Lamar Jackson throw it 25, 30 times a game. So I definitely think Prochet can fit a very important role in that offense. Sure, I know they got Devin Duvernay, the wide receiver out of Texas, who could play a similar role as well. I think he was 4th or 5th round pick, but I think Prochet, given his high volume that he had at SMU, is a really good piece for Baltimore. And again, like you said, this Baltimore draft, I mean, it's every year we say this, but they just get value after value. And even if you maybe not have liked the player that much, you see him in a Baltimore Ravens uniform, you see that pick come across your screen, you're like, man, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe I should go back and evaluate him and just think of him as a Baltimore Raven and see how he fits in that situation. So James Prochet, I think he brings a lot of impact, and there may not be many guys you can say about that when they last all the way to the 6th round.
They've got an interesting receiving core there. You've got Devin Duvernay, who they drafted earlier. You've now got James Prochet. You've got Hollywood Brown. And who's the kid out of Notre Dame? I'm completely blanking on their name.
Miles Boykin.
Miles, exactly. So you've got Boykin, you've got Mark Andrews, and they went out. They've got J.K. Dobbins now, Mark Ingram. They are stacked offensively, and they still got a plug-and-play right guard. I mean, they got some good defensive players. They had a hell of a draft. So I'm with you there. I think that's a great pick. I'm not going to go that route. I'm actually going to go – this one might surprise a couple of people, and also, I just want to say, and I want to get your thoughts after I give my pick, but I do want to get your thoughts on the Eagles doubling down on 2 Auburn offensive tackles. And I'm sure you're going to get that question on the radio 50 times this week, but I want to get it for our show. But the pick I like, Evan Weaver out of Cal, going to 202 to the Cardinals. The Cardinals have a need at linebacker, and I know they got Isaiah Simmons, and Simmons is going to do a lot, but Weaver, I think, helps Isaiah Simmons because now you can put Weaver in the box. And even though he's a limited athlete, he can do so much in that box. He finds a way to get to the football. This was a guy that had 182 tackles this past year. He's got like over 500 in his career. If he would have maybe tested a little bit better at the combine, he probably would have been a top 100 pick. He falls out of the top 200. I think this is a great pick. So you get Evan Weaver, you have Isaiah Simmons. He's going to free up Simmons. I think this was a great pick. I don't know if he's necessarily a plug-and-play linebacker, but I think he can be a situational player, especially on 1st and 2nd down. And then you have, maybe you go into your dime package and you've got your 4 corners on the field and you've got, Simmons just spying in the middle of the field as a Mike linebacker or something. I think there's a lot that they could do here, but Weaver brings them a lot of flexibility on first and second down as an effective tackler, and I like that fit a lot. But, yeah, I want to get your thoughts real fast on the Eagles going Jack Driscoll, Prince, back-to-back, not necessarily back-to-back, but going, doubling down on Auburn offensive tackles.
Yeah, I think something that was definitely interesting when Driscoll's name was announced. He was named or listed as a guard when the pick was announced. So that definitely kind of gets you questioning, well, is he going to be moved inside? I know he played a few games at guard in his first year at Massachusetts, and then he played the rest of his career in that next year at Massachusetts, and then the 2 years at Auburn, all at right tackle. So it may be a little interesting. I don't know how much core strength he has to play kind of that guard position, but I went on record saying I thought Driscoll was one of the more underrated players in this entire draft class, regardless of position. I mean, you just look at his technique is very clean. Sure, sometimes he'll over-pursue just a little bit, but he has that foot speed and that clean footwork to recover if he does lose some balance in that initial punch. Or he does miss, some timing situations. So Driscoll makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to say he's going to be, a key role player, whatever it may be, day one, but I don't know how often Eagles use something like a swing tackle, but I think he'd be a perfect situation for that. Get him to learn the offense, get him to learn the flow of the blocking schemes, and then maybe play into a guard or heck, even a center. I think he has that high football IQ, just talking to him in years past, where he can definitely adjust to a situation like that. But Prince Tega Winogo, he was kind of the surprise that he lasted so long. Look, I get it. I wasn't going to buy into this top 75. I knew he would slip down probably that 4th or 5th round range, but being one of the last picks of the 6th round at 210, the Eagles went that direction. And the only explanation I have with him slipping that far is, I guess, some of the rumors or the information we got this draft season. He was in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and then day one we figured out he can't participate the week because he failed his medical or he failed his physical because of certain knee swelling. And then you get to the combine and the pro day, and then he has an injured foot. And then he was going to have his personal workout at the end of April. But then the COVID-19 came across and he couldn't do that. So there were so many questions, no numbers really to judge on except his height and weight and all those, physical attributes that you can measure. So I guess there was just a lot of uncertainty for Prince Tega Winogo, and maybe his tape didn't check off enough where they could look past that. There's some players that, may fail their medicals, so to speak, but their tape trumps it. And they're like, well, he's worth taking a risk on. But Winogo, it doesn't seem like that was the case because he did show some inconsistencies on tape. But the physical intrigue's there. So it'll be interesting to see. The Eagles definitely could have gotten one of the better steals in this class when we look back at it a few years down the road. But it is interesting. I don't remember when I was at the pro day that there was any, intense conversations of the Eagles and Auburn's offensive line coach. So I don't know. It was something that I wasn't really paying attention to at the pro day, but maybe I should next year and see if I can network with some Eagles guys and be like, what did you see in these two guys? What did you see in Auburn's offensive line? But yeah, it's definitely interesting when one organization takes two players, at least of the same position. It's definitely interesting.
Maybe they just wanted to say "War Damn Eagle" and really stand by that. But it's interesting. Driscoll, I think, brings some guard flexibility. You mentioned that. I think that's some versatile asset that he can bring. And when they lost Big V to the Lions, I think they are kind of looking for that. And I think Driscoll can provide that. So I like that fit. Yeah, and you're right on Prince. I don't know exactly what he's going to provide, but he's certainly a quality backup left tackle, and to get him where they got him, I think it's a good fit. But 7th round, there's a couple of names. There's certainly some names. I don't know what they're doing in this draft. The Syracuse punter. Okay, I don't know anything about that guy, but there were some interesting picks here. I'm going to go obviously with my guy, and that's Kenny Willekes, Michigan State, going to the Vikings at 225. I don't know how he fell 225. I don't know if it's because he's a little bit, if you want to say, undersized, or if he just, didn't necessarily crush the combine like some people thought. But I think he's a high effort, high motor type of guy that makes a ton of sense for them. So I think at 225, he's going to make that team, and he's going to make that team better. So that's my guy in the 7th round.
Yeah, I'm going to go with KJ Hill being selected by the Los Angeles Chargers at pick 220. And This surprised me because I thought KJ Hill had a very clean Senior Bowl week. He showcased his ability to create separation just in the intermediate levels of the field. He has that short area quickness, and I remember I was whispering over to you and Luke Inman and saying he kind of has some Emmanuel Sanders to his game because he can get that separation in the intermediate areas of the field, but he can also press you deep on the deep parts of the field when in the red zone. And, I think he leads the receptions in Ohio State history. So just a very productive guy. I think he understands as far as just you can see that football intelligence on the field. I think he goes in a very good situation with the Chargers, gives maybe Justin Herbert and Tyrod Taylor a little bit more of a comfort, but there's a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. But I think that's a really good situation for Hill. I think there's a lot of value if you're just looking at guys that can add immediate impact in the 7th round. KJ Hill is probably going to be atop the list.
For sure. And another guy too, Eno Benjamin, going in the 7th round was a bit of a shocker. I was surprised that there was, certain running backs going over him in this draft. Jason Huntley was a guy that from New Mexico State, the Lions took. If they're going to double down at running back, why not consider a guy like Eno Benjamin, who's a plus pass catcher, not necessarily an elite athlete, but pretty good contact balance. He runs aggressively. I don't know. I was a little surprised to see him fall, but I like his fit in Arizona quite a bit with Kenyon Drake. So that was another one. And then obviously Marcus Bailey at the top of the 7th round. I figured he was going to go 6th, 7th round just simply because of the medicals. He had a hip injury that he had surgery on. He had 2 torn ACLs that we all know. But this is an instinctive guy. I've had him on the podcast as well as, Kenny Willekes and Joe Bocci. But having Marcus Bailey on really was like, okay, let's go back to this guy's tape. And if you look back at a prospect with maybe dominant tape, what was a dominant game? Bailey in 2018 against Ohio State, that was a slam dunk of a game, maybe his best game for sure. He even said that. So I think if the Bengals can get some of that, I think it's going to be a home run. But he returns back home to Ohio. He's from Columbus. He'll play in Cincinnati. I think he's got a shot at making their roster. And with what they've done at their linebacker position, I mean, Akeem Davis-Gaither, Logan Wilson, and now Marcus Bailey, they have Jermaine Pratt. So they've got some athletic guys and an instinctive guy in Bailey. So there was a couple of picks in the 7th round, not all of them, but there was a couple that I think we needed to talk about, especially late in the process. But pick a team. What was your favorite team through this draft process?
Man, it's tough to go against the Ravens, just what they were able to do. And I mean, Patrick Queen in round 1 was very impressive. Then you get a guy like J.K. Dobbins that doesn't have to be the guy day one because Mark Ingram is, I don't say the ageless wonder because he's not that old, but he still continues just to produce at a very consistent level. Got Justin Matabuke, the defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. He can fill an immediate role, brings maybe a little more athleticism to that defensive line. And you got contributors like we talked about, James Prochet in the 6th round, Devin Duvernay early on, a guy like Malik Harrison. I mean, you got 2 of the top 5 linebackers in this class with Patrick Queen and Harrison, 2 guys that I think that can see the field immediately. And then you got Ben Bredesen, who, let's be honest, like you said, he could be the guy that sees the field before any of these guys in their draft class because he has that mold to fill that Marshall Yonda vacancy. And if they just want to pound the rock in between the tackles with Mark Ingram and just play that read option game, as long as you keep Bredesen at his point and just let him stay in the pocket there, he's going to be capable of the world in that situation. So I really like what Baltimore did. And I really like what Minnesota did. I know I'm going very chalk, but, I mean, both of these teams, it seems like they do extremely well in the drafts every year. Minnesota got a lot of guys that I think are going to contribute day one. Started out with Justin Jefferson. I think he's a perfect fit for that Stephon Diggs role, can beat you over the top. Of course, his route running is not going to be as polished as Diggs because I think Diggs might be the best route runner in all of football. But Jefferson definitely brings that good secondary piece to Adam Thielen in that offense. But, of course, grabbing guys like Jeff Gladney and even Cameron Dantzler out of Mississippi State. I know the buzz around him after the combine was very low, but you're putting into a very physical press situation. And that's what Dantzler likes to do. He has, that 6'2" long frame. He's a little on the leaner side, but he still has that demeanor. He wants to hit you in the mouth. He wants to hit you in the run game. And then he can play the ball. He'll play through the whistle too. So those are two very Zimmer-esque cornerbacks that I think are going to be, they have no choice to play but immediately, but I think there are two guys that could fit that role and give some immediate impact. But even guys like Ezra Cleveland, who I wasn't extremely high on, but later on in that second round, I think was solid. And another corner that we talked about that could be a decent value given, what his projection was, Harrison Hanna out of Temple. He didn't blow me away on film. But again, any cornerback that the Vikings pick under Mike Zimmer, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, they're going to be all right. And so that's what I think that these three corners bring to the table. But Minnesota and Baltimore, they had a lot of value, and they got a lot of guys that are going to play day one.
Yeah, you took my thunder there with the Vikings, but I completely agree, and I couldn't have said it any better. So, yeah, Gladney, Cam Dantzler, for sure are guys that are Mike Zimmer type of corners, and I think those are going to be guys that certainly develop into something that I think is going to be solid CB1, CB2 type of corners. So, and I wasn't the biggest fan of Dantzler, but they got him right like around the value of where I had him on my board. I think he was 89th or 87th on the board, somewhere in that range. So they got him right there. I like that draft, but I'll go with another team, and that's the Jaguars. I thought, their first 6 picks were pretty solid selections. CJ Henderson at pick 9 might be a little rich for some people, but they get their starting corner. And a lot of people were very high on him. It seemed like a lot of teams were very high on him as maybe the consensus second best corner in this draft. And they got Kayvon Chasen out of LSU. I think as they look for, a little bit more of a presence off the edge, I think, Chasen can bring that, and he should develop well there. Laviska Shenault, pick 42. I think that's a great pick as well. If he's healthy, I think him and Gardner Minshew could be very, very productive as a duo. So I like that pick. And then Devon Hamilton, one of my guys. I don't know if he necessarily replaces Calais Campbell in the middle. He certainly, I don't think, will be as effective, but I think he could be a plug and play defensive tackle. He's probably going to shade on the center, play a little 2-eye, but he's going to be a guy that, penetrates the A-gap quite a bit, and he could, bring some 2-gapping ability as well. So I love that pick, Ben Barch. I was surprised he lasted all the way to pick 116, but I think he brings maybe some swing tackle capability, but maybe he's best suited to move inside, and I think that's okay. But I like the pick. I'm curious to see how he develops. I don't know if he's necessarily a plug-and-play guy, but you got a developmental tackle at least, and especially getting his feet wet in the NFL and once he gets maybe a little bit stronger. But he did well at the Senior Bowl. So, and then lastly, Josiah Scott out of Michigan State. I've watched this guy quite a bit. I don't know if he's necessarily an outside guy. I think he's a little bit undersized, but he moves pretty well. He recovers well, and he's got the ball skills. If he can stay healthy, I think you've got yourself a guy that can be a slot corner playing the nickel role, and I think that's good for the Jaguars. But, Colin Johnson in round 5, one of those skyscraping type of receivers at 6'5", pretty fluid actually for a guy that big. So I like what they did quite a bit in this draft. And then I'll go with another team, and we can kind of get out of here. But the Indianapolis Colts, and we already mentioned the Carolina Panthers in their draft, but the Indianapolis Colts I thought had a really good draft. Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, their future on offense looks pretty bright. And then going Julian Blackmon, the safety, I think this guy's got versatility. He can play outside at corner, which is something he was. Then he moved to safety. He comes downhill quick. He's got the ball skills. Then you got Jacob Eason in the 4th round. Maybe there's, I don't know if there's a better quarterback in this draft to develop under Phillip Rivers than Eason. And then you've got Danny Pinter, who we talked about briefly. I think he, with time, will develop into a nice guard for them. I didn't watch him a ton, but just from the way it sounds and just how he transformed from a tight end to a guard, I think, given another year or two as a 5th round pick, he could be a future guard for this team as they've got, expiring contracts on their offensive line and stuff. Rob Windsor out of Penn State, not my favorite defensive tackle, but I think this was a guy that if you're looking for some help as a rotational piece, a high motor guy, high effort type of guy. Windsor's that guy. So he's got good pad level consistently every snap. And again, he's got the motor. So as a 6th-round pick, I think that's pretty good. So with not having a 1st-round pick and getting, Buckner and everything, I think the Colts had a pretty good draft. And I think a lot of people will forget that they have DeForest Buckner now. But they've got a good, solid team with a quarterback now in Phillip Rivers that they might be able to take maybe that step to the next level. And it wouldn't surprise me if they were, an AFC championship type of team. So let's hope everybody can stay healthy with the Colts, but I like their draft quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's funny how I feel like half the league had anywhere from like a B- and above in this draft class. And I know it's just prospects and players right now and some given value, but just seems like there's a lot of strong group of draft classes so far. And I don't know. I tip my cap to a lot of them because it seemed like this draft went a lot more smooth than it had been, given all the amenities and all the resources we've had in years past. But the quarantine draft, I think a lot of teams did really well.
Well, and I think what helps with that is you don't have a bunch of GMs playing smartest guy in the room. You've got GMs that they have really the film, and that's it. So I think this
is more like a scout-driven draft, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, no, I think it's a good draft for sure for so many different teams. We did get a question from our guy Owen Reese at Reese Draft on Twitter. I asked some people to drop some questions, and he said, "What are your guys' thoughts about AJ Dillon's fit in Green Bay?" So, I can go, you can go, we can both go, however you want to go about it. I mean, I guess we could talk about the Packers draft a little bit and then get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, we can start with A.J. Dillon. I mean, you know what you're getting. You're getting this, 6'1" and some change, 240-plus power back. But we were watching him just a couple weeks ago on our Zoom call, and he has a lot more of underrated athleticism in his lower half than probably a lot of people thought. He has, to me, above-average vision, and he knows what to do as far as take what the defense is giving him. He'll get those grit yards in the interior, but he also knows when to bounce it outside. He shows some ability as a blocking running back as well. So maybe he is a glorified fullback, is going to get some carries in that offense. But I'm not going to say he's ever going to be the number one guy, and he's not, because Aaron Jones has been phenomenal. Talk about value picks in general. Aaron Jones out of UTEP's been a phenomenal value pick for Green Bay. But A.J. Dillon, I don't want to say he's necessarily a complimentary back, but maybe brings something a little different to that Green Bay offense. Sure, maybe he is a fullback, but I think he's a fullback with some upside, if that makes sense, because he brings a lot to the table. He's not going to go out and really catch many passes, but as far as just getting the grit yards, getting those hard-earned runs inside the tackles, he definitely meets the bill of that, and I think his vision overall is pretty solid.
Yeah, I like the A.J. Dillon pick. I thought round 2 was a little rich for sure, considering some of the other backs. But, I mean, I think this is just kind of Matt LaFleur and the Packers saying, hey, we're going to protect our investment of a first-round pick in Jordan Love. And when he's ready to be our starting quarterback, I think they're going to have a kind of a different identity than what we're used to seeing. They're going to be a run-first football team. And I think Dillon, is going to be part of that with Aaron Jones. And then you've got Josiah DeGuara, the tight end that they drafted in the 3rd round, who's probably going to be more of like that H-back. And I mean, he's got a pretty fluid lower body. So I'm interested to see what they do there. It just seems like all signs are pointing to them becoming a little bit more of a run-heavy team, or that they're going to move on from one of my guys a few years back, Jamal Williams out of BYU. But, John Runyon was a pick in the 6th round, Jake Hansen in the 6th round as well. And then they followed up with Simon Stepniak out of Indiana. So I don't know much about the Indiana kid, but I know Zach Hicks was pretty high on Jake Hansen as just far as like a day 3 type of kid. And I know he did not test great at the combine, but who cares for offensive lineman's sake. And then John Runyon, we all know about his dad, who was a 12, 14-year pro in the league. You bring in Runyon, he's got, I think, a little bit of, tackle flexibility. He could maybe be a little swing tackle, but more than likely he's best suited inside, and that's why they've got him listed as a guard. But, yeah, I think their draft was very odd. It was different. It was a great wide receiver draft. We talked so many times about how they need a wide receiver. They didn't take one. So I don't know exactly what they're doing, but it seems like to me they're changing their identity. They're preparing for the future with maybe Jordan Love to become more of a run-heavy team, and maybe preparing for life after Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. So we'll see what happens with them. But, yeah, the Dillon pick was a little surprising. Second round's a little rich for me. But, again, like you mentioned, he's got some lower body flexibility, good lower body movement skills that makes him intriguing. And obviously he's an explosive athlete. So we'll see what happens. He seems kind of like that old school running back. If I gave a pro comp, which I hate, but if I had to give one, Brandon Jacobs would be kind of the career path. I could see him go down, score 60 touchdowns, get 6,000 yards or something, and just be effective, especially on third down and short yardage situations. So we'll see what happens with the Packers and A.J. Dillon. But, I don't like the pick, but I don't dislike the pick, I guess. It's just one of those, it is what it is, So you got anything else to add for this draft recap of the 2020 NFL draft?
I'm just really interested in how this Miami draft class is going to pan out. And I know I talked about it on, I guess it was Friday morning, and I get it. You get Tua, you get Austin Jackson round 1, you get Noah Igbenogany at your last pick of the first round. You get guys like Robert Hunt out of Louisiana, Raekwon Davis, Alabama, Brandon Jones, safety out of Texas, Solomon Kinley, Georgia, Jason Strowbridge, North Carolina, Curtis Weaver, and then you go and get Malcolm Perry out of Navy, and then your long snapper Blake Ferguson out of LSU. So I read all those guys off because there is a big question mark on every single one of those guys. And again, I know the draft is full of risk-reward guys, but with just the haul that Miami had as far as picks go, this could make or break their organization going forward. And I get it when you draft an injury-prone quarterback like Tua, but has the upside of an all-pro, and heck, he probably has the upside of a Hall of Famer. I don't want to put that tag on him yet, but if he's healthy, then I think he could bring that to the table. But this Miami draft, it wasn't bad, but I think there's a lot more question marks on each and every one of these guys, whether it's, based on where they're going to play or their injury history, where they played in college, how long they played at that position. There's just a lot of questions regarding this draft class. And so, sure, I hope for the best, and I hope any draft class sits there and falters, but I don't think enough people are talking about how questionable some of Miami's selections are overall.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that they, went after defensive tackles like Strowbridge and Raekwon Davis, and then go the edge rusher with Curtis Weaver, and didn't really attack this wide receiver draft. And I thought there was some good receivers for them to maybe pair up with Tua, because I'm not completely sold on Devontae Parker in this receiving group. And I don't know. Robert Hunt I like, Iggy I like, Austin Jackson I like, and I can live with the Raekwon Davis pick. Him and Christian Wilkins I think will be actually pretty solid on the interior. But you're right. They made some questionable calls in this draft. And I like that they went defense in a sake just simply because they've got a defensive-minded coach. But I think you needed to look at maybe getting a potential weapon with your quarterback. And I thought also running back. Jordan Howard you have, and I know they just traded for Matt Breida, but I don't know. I just thought with a receiver, I thought maybe there was a receiver in this draft that they could have attacked and maybe got, but maybe I'm just nitpicking a little bit. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's an interesting draft for them for sure. You bring up a valid point. We'll see what happens. Obviously, it's something that we can talk about further down the road. But I don't have anything else to add. I appreciate everybody that's been listening to the podcast, subscribing, rating, and reviewing, and just giving us such positive feedback. It's been a great year for the 2020 NFL draft. It's always kind of a sigh of relief when it's over, because then you can kind of take a step back for a minute and enjoy your family for a minute and not hunker down in a bedroom or in an office or something and watch film 20 hours a day. But it's been a great year. I appreciate all the podcasts that we did, all the content that you pushed out, and it's been a great year, my man. Do you got anything else to add?
Man, it's been awesome. I think this was probably the year that I've enjoyed the most covering the draft, whether it was in the Senior Bowl at Mobile and just getting, the network with a bunch of people. But again, like you're saying, working with you, working with guys like Eric, Zach, Brad, Greg, and the list goes on and on, the people at Cover One, and all of the subscribers and viewers that we've had. Y'all have been awesome. You know, whether it was tackling the Zoom issues that we had this week or just having a lot of fun in the Slack channel. It's definitely worth all the work that we put in, just given the feedback and the appreciation we get from all the viewers and listeners.
Yeah, for sure. And it's been great, man. So another year in the books for us here at Cover One, doing the draft thing. We'll be back for sure doing 2021 stuff. We'll kind of put together a plan for the week ahead of what we're going to necessarily do. Maybe we'll break down some specific teams a little bit more in detail, or maybe we'll just simply start focusing on 2021. Not exactly sure yet, but again, we appreciate everybody. Be sure to continue to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Continue to share it. And then, of course, find us on Twitter @_Christian Page, @Russ NFL Draft. But until next time, this is Cover One, the Draft Podcast.